I'm intrigued by these sloggers. So I've come to the start of Park Street, to the site of a music hall that was a haunt of the Park Street gang, to meet Birmingham historian Professor Carl Chin.
We're in the heart of Birmingham. This is where Birmingham began and from which it grew. We're in the Bull Ring. Look, over there, St Martin's in the Bull Ring. The Park Street gang, they saw this as their patch. And on the night before Christmas Eve, 1893, when it was called the Canterbury Music Hall, there was a killing of a young man outside here.
Right here?
Yeah.
On this spot?
Yeah. Very sad. There was another well-established slogging gang nearby, just across the way. It was called the Barford Street Gang. Some of the Barford Street Gang were in this music hall. The Park Street Gang came outside and waited for them in numbers. When a few of the Barford Street Gang came outside, they were attacked. And then a young man from the Barford Street Gang called John Metcalfe knifed a member of the Park Street Gang in the neck with a penknife. Unfortunately, John Cherry died. He was 18 and he was a nail maker.
We just think of the ripples that must have sent around the whole of Park Street, around this whole area.
On another occasion, the manager of the music hall here was killed.
The manager?
Yeah, the manager was killed as well on another occasion.
So this is really escalating. This is like gangland warfare. We're on the periphery between where two gangs meet.
Yeah.
They meet here, and it actually results in murder. It's a brutal introduction to the slogging gangs. Carl wants to reveal to me who they really were. So it says here, in another case which occurred last Saturday week, a young man named Eastwood was murderously assaulted by a number of members of a gang known as the Small Heath Peaky Blinders.
Slogging gangs and sloggers are the terms used for the gangs of Birmingham, the backstreet gangs of Birmingham, before the term Peaky Blinder comes in.
So that is familiar, Peaky Blinders, to many people because of the TV series, the drama.
The reality is very different. The late 19th century, very early 20th century, there's a few English cities that have got a major backstreet gang problem. There's Liverpool, there's Manchester and Salford, there's London, and there's Birmingham. So they fight each other, one street against the next.
Yeah, yeah. Are they kind of making a living out of it? Or is this after work? Like, how does that relate to what
they are
doing?
Mostly working chaps in their late teens and 20s. You've got a very different demographic to today, haven't we?
So many young people.
So many young people. So Saturdays after work, Sundays, the Lord's Day, they've got no parks, got no recreation grounds. And so where do they gather? Waste ground.
So they were meeting on what was the Park Street burial ground?
Yes, they would have met there and on other waste grounds. Now, their pastimes are rough sports. They play roughly with each other. It's a hard world that they're living in. And hardness is a quality valued by young men. In a world where they own nothing, what's the only thing they can say they're better at than they're better off? Fighting.
But when you say fight, what does that mean?
Right, so they slog.
And, OK, so slogging is...
So it's from an old pugilistic term.
Yeah.
To strike with a heavy blow. They're dirty fighters. They use their boots. Their belts, that's their main weapon. Belts with the big brass buckles.
Which they're making in Birmingham.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they wrap them around their wrist, then they slash, and they slash.
So this isn't just one family. This is a whole load of gangs all over the city.
Yeah, and many different families involved.
So it is razor blades. That's real, is it?
No.
That's not real?
No.
So there aren't the razors in that?
No, it's not
so
real.
So what they use? They're using the belts?
They use the belts, the boots.
And then knives sometimes.
Knives, handkerchiefs filled with stones. They break bricks. They'll throw the half-house bricks at each other and the police. One policeman gets bricked to death in Birmingham. This is a man called Charles Battle. Now, what's he wearing?
So he's got this hat on.
Yeah.
But it's not a peak cap.
No. What kind of hat is it?
It's a sort of bowler.
It's called a billycock. Now, Charles Battle is wearing the fashion of the first Peaky Blinders. They had their hair closely cropped, like Battle, but a lot of the Peaky Blinders sported a quiff of hair on one side, and they plastered it on the forehead obliquely, and they like to show it off. So what have they got to do to the billycock?
They kind of tip the hat to one side.
Yeah.
So they're showing off their fancy hair
Their fancy
curl.
quiff, yeah. And that's what happens when they bring the flat cap in. A lot of them still have got a quiff, and they pull the peak of the cap down.
And that's blinding their eye.
Yeah, shadow in the eyes, isn't it? Blinding the eye.
So do you think that's where the term comes from?
I don't think.
You know?
I know. I know it because of the accounts from people who lived at the period. Here's another one. This is a man called Edward Derrick. Edward Derrick. He's a teenager here, done for housebreaking. He also is a man who brutally beats his wife, Ada, regularly. He's a horrible, nasty, wife-beating thug. He's my great-grandfather.
That's amazing. So you are a direct descendant from the Peaky Blinders?
And he's left his mark upon me, in my looks.
How do you feel about that?
I can't hide away from that, can I? And as a historian, if I'm right about the ancestors of other people who were violent, I've got to share those in my own family that were incorrigible rogues, and he was.
That's the truth of family history, isn't it?
Yeah. It's reality.
Just thinking back to Park Street and Birmingham more generally, is there something going on around here that is creating these kind of gangs?
Poverty was widespread in Victorian Britain. There's this paradox of the wealthiest nation in the world with so much poverty. The poor are living in badly built housing, crammed into a tightly packed area. And then, in Birmingham, London, all the big cities, railway lines are being built. Whose homes are being knocked down for them? Poorer people. So overcrowding goes up. So the problems of the poor in the late 19th century, I would argue, are actually worsening.
It's the absolute dark underbelly of the Victorian age. You know, people celebrate the Victorians and think they created all these wonders, and we've seen the railways and the amazing civic buildings, but the dark side of that, the underbelly of it, is exactly the sorts of things that you're talking about.
At the end of the 19th century, there were at least 50 violent street gangs in Birmingham. Something needed to be done. Improved policing and the rise of sporting clubs helped, but there was another solution. Throughout the country, public parks were created in the most deprived urban areas. In 1893, the Park Street burial ground was turned into a space described as a health resort for local children. For 120 years, it symbolised the desire of enlightened Victorians to improve the lives of ordinary people in our industrial cities.